in 2008 with 21% of total global emissions, followed by the United States, which is about 20%. Japan is the 5th largest emitter, Korea the 7th largest emitter. The two other countries in Asia Pacific, Russia is the 3rd, and India 4th largest emitter. Most of the largest emitters come from this region. After the proclamation of low-carbon green growth as the nation's new vision by the President Lee Myung-bak in August 2008, Korea has been implementing various policy measures to expedite the paradigm shift from the quantity-oriented, fossil fuel-dependent growth to the quality-oriented, low-carbon growth, that is, green growth. China, Japan have also been doing their share and best in trying to set various targets regarding energy efficiency and reducing emissions. In an era of accelerated connectedness, we are reminded constantly of the necessity of a shared vision and policy coordination among three countries. Every single issue that we confront today and every single policy we are implementing is affected by changes that occur beyond our domestic controls and national boundaries. In particular, climate change is one of the best examples of external DC economies on a global scale. How to internalize this externality is the major task that every nation on earth is currently faced with, and in the absence of united resolve, will never be tackled successfully. When Korea, China, Japan agree on the common vision of green growth and closely collaborate, all domestic policies and actions will have a powerful synergy impact. This is why these three countries, as a major climate subset of the world, have to cooperate closely to find the ways to turn climate danger into growth opportunity. In this respect, I strongly believe that it is worth considering the promotion of low-carbon green growth as one of the priorities for regional cooperation, and accordingly, the creation of channels for dialogue and consultation in the form of a Northeast Asia Green Growth Cooperation. It will be an excellent mechanism where policymakers and experts can gather and explore areas of green cooperation. Development of green technology and green energy should be the key objectives of green cooperation. Green growth cooperation can, of course, be extended to ASEAN countries and further beyond. I would like to remind you that during his recent state visit to the Kingdom of Denmark, President Lee Myung-bak and Danish Prime Minister Rasmussen agreed to form a green growth alliance between Korea and Denmark, the first of its kind in the world. Northeast Asia Green Growth Cooperation can eventually be incorporated with this alliance, which I sincerely hope will be expanded to include all the major global players in the field of climate change and green growth in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a critical juncture in the history of mankind. In a world marked by unprecedented progress, but also by equally pervasive threats and challenges, we must not be afraid of crises. I sincerely hope that Korea, China, Japan will embark on a pioneering effort to explore the new frontier of cooperation through green cooperation, and also in doing so present viable solutions to the challenges confronting Northeast Asia and to a roadmap to a better Asian world. I'd like to conclude my remarks by sincerely hoping that this new Jeju Forum will lay a solid groundwork as a region's major forum for creative discussions on peace and prosperity in Northeast Asia and beyond. Thank you for your...
Thank you, Prime Minister Han Sung-soo, for giving us such an insightful views on the current situation and historical background, and also future prospects for Asian community. Let me now begin our discussion for about half an hour to touch upon some of the major issues which were elaborated in the speech. First is a comparison between Asia and Europe. In recent times, countries in Asia have tried their best efforts to cooperate. First, in terms of dealing with the global financial economic crisis through swap, the currency swap, and multilateralization of the financial support, such as the Chiang Mai Initiative liberalization. Secondly, through the diversifying networks of FTA, free trade agreements, between China, ASEAN, Korea, India, and Japan as well. And I think this is perhaps the most noticeable phenomenon in the efforts towards community building in Asia. But compared to Europe, we have no NATO, we have no tight network of countries in the definition of the Union. So Asia still is a loose network of countries cooperating with each other in a regional sense and also in the financial terms and through trade and investment. So my question is, what are the potentials and obstacles for Asia in moving towards more closer community building in comparison to European Union? Would the two leaders briefly respond to the first question? President Arroyo.
As far as potential is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, we have a very cohesive organization in ASEAN, and we will be one single market and production base by 2015. So that is the closest to where we are in Asia with regard to an aspiration to be like Europe. Before Europe became the European Union, it was a European community. So this is where we're headed for in 2015, and we want to move beyond that eventually. I mentioned about moving beyond ASEAN to the whole Asia, continent of Asia, because we are the only continent that really doesn't have a continent-wide organization. You have the Organization of African States. You have the Organization of American States, where North and South America are together. Even you have enemies like United States and Venezuela in the same forum. So it's our potential can really be more fulfilled if we look at Pan-Asia rather than starting from the regional groupings that we already have. Obstacles. Maybe it's because we are so heterogeneous compared to Africa, compared to Europe, compared to America. We have different ethnic identities. We have different colonial histories. We have different social organizations. We have different forms of government. We have different religions. But if you look at ASEAN, it's the same thing. We have all those differences as well. And yet we were able to forge, or we are able to forge now, a regional community that we hope will be fulfilled by 2015, and we're moving towards that. So I think what is needed is that somebody should convene it. ASEAN convened the ASEAN Plus 3, and it convened the East Asia Summit, which is ASEAN Plus 3, plus Australia, New Zealand, and India. That's why I was saying that Jeju could be a percolator for that in search for a convener.
Thank you. Prime Minister Han, would you comment?
During the financial crisis of 2008, Korea benefited greatly from the help of China and Japan because as you said, currency swap agreement between Korea and China and Japan and the United States helped us overcome the difficulty very easily, because at that time each country had, I think we had about $30 billion US dollar worth of currency swap. But unfortunately in Asia, unlike in Europe, the process of integration is rather slow, or rather very slow. We have not even come to the stage of minimum level of integration, that is free trade agreement. In case of Europe, as I just mentioned in my speech, it's totally different. Soon after the Second World War, within 5 years, they agreed on a Treaty of Paris, which established ECSC, European Coal and Steel Community, in order to control the war materials. Coal and steel were the important materials for waging war. And they also, in 1956, agreed on Treaty of Rome, which eventually established the European Economic Communities. Based on these two major treaties, they were able to build up the integration that we see today. But unfortunately, in Asia, there is no such movement. And the reason, I think, is that, as I said in my text, perhaps lack of idealists like Jiang Monnet or Zhu Shumang, or great political leaders like Charles de Gaulle and Konrad Adenauer. But I am hopeful that new leaders, particularly younger generation of Asia, there's a great number of interaction between younger generation in Asia that they will eventually bring about much closer cooperation among three nations and beyond. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Both leaders have pointed out the importance of the role of China in the development of the Asian community building. And I think that the rise of China is one important agenda to discuss in this conference. But I'd like to ask the two leaders to respond to a question of how do you perceive the challenges and opportunities of the rise of China in the community building in Asia? And what do you think about the role of the United States, which has proposed that a trans-Pacific partnership should be the common agenda to discuss among the nations in the Asia-Pacific region? How do you see these big powers play in the development of the Asian community building? President Arroyo.
The rise of China has transformed Asia's growth from one of dependence on exports to the US and Europe to one of interdependence within Asia, because China, such a big market, is in Asia. And so therefore, it helps us move closer towards an Asian community. The U.S., of course, would not want to lose that very big market and trading partner in Asia. And it is logical for it to propose a trans-Pacific trade area. And I think that in the absence of progress in the WTO, any movement towards greater trade and increasing the area for trade and is welcome. So I do not see any conflict between the rise of China as a major market for Asian economies and the continuation of trading arrangements with the United States across the Pacific.
Dr. Han.
China has been and will be a real engine of growth of this region as well as in the world. But China also has its own problem. For example, a problem of inflation now and also problem of equity. Therefore, from this year, that is the beginning of the 12th five-year plan, they have reduced the growth rate from about 8% to 7% for the sake of so-called inclusive growth. But even then, 7% is very high. And in addition to China, India is also growing as fast that these two countries will be engine of growth of this region as well as the world. We have to have a very close cooperation with China, no doubt, but China's growth, economic growth, I don't think have any impact on the future of regional corporate formation. It is a totally separate problem, but we hope that China will be more active in trying to form the regional sort of community in this area. At the moment, Korea and China are interested in negotiating on, I think, a free trade agreement, but even that will take some time. And free trade agreement between Japan and Korea stalled. So all in all, unlike in Europe, the future on this issue among three countries beyond rather hopefully, I think it's a little bit pessimistic, but hope that leaders will come to realize that future of these three nations are so important to the future generation that they'll come to some kind of accommodation to create really favorable condition for free trade agreement that will benefit no doubt future generations. The role of the United States has been always, U.S. has been very much interested in getting involved. In 1989, when we created the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, U.S. was original plan was not included, but U.S. somehow was admitted to APEC, and since then has been very active in that forum. And the U.S. of course presence in this region, I am sure will greatly be helpful to the future prosperity not only of this region, for the region as a whole. But U.S. involvement in Asia has more security implications than community implications. Thank you.
Thank you. Recently, the leaders of 3 countries in Northeast Asia, Korea, China, Japan, gathered together in Japan to participate in the summit between 3 countries, the summit between the Troika countries in Northeast Asia. And I think this is a very remarkable development among 3 countries in this region because of the different perspectives of the history and the conflicts and frictions in the past. And this natural disaster in Japan this time, coming from earthquake and tsunami, have actually stimulated the closer cooperation partnership among these countries in terms of promoting the nuclear safety and the security of the facilities through the nuclear power generation. And also in moving towards the trilateral FTA discussions, which the leaders have agreed to complete by the end of this year to move towards more closer free trade network. And I wonder how these changes in Northeast Asia is perceived from the ASEAN countries. I would like to ask a question to President Arroyo about the three countries' relationship.
Oh, the 3 countries. Well, I mentioned in my remarks that it's very important for the peace and prosperity of this region, for the 3 giant Northeast Asian economies to be friends with one another. And so we really welcome these talks, the trilateral talks among themselves. It was in the Manila Summit in 1997 where of ASEAN, where the ASEAN Plus 3 was born. And we're very glad that even outside of the ASEAN Plus 3 framework, the 3 giant economies have been meeting with one another. And we hope that this will continue because then that will certainly promote peace and prosperity within the region and the continent. The 3 economies are driving growth in Asia. And when there is peace and stability, there is greater momentum for economic growth in the 3 economies and in the rest of Asia, which they influence so much.
Prime Minister Han, would you like to comment on the trilateral summit meeting recently held?
First of all, we are very saddened, of course, and grieved to see the earthquake, enormous earthquake, and tsunami the following tsunami in Japan, and we greatly admire the calm Japanese response to this crisis, and we hope that Japan will soon recover from this great disasters as early as possible. As I am still chair of the high-level expert panel on water and disaster. I called a special meeting, UN meeting in Tokyo about a month ago, and went to the site in Iwate-ken, Rikuzen Takada City, and observed the site. It was a very miserable site, but I saw many Japanese were hopeful that they will be able to recover as early as possible. We hope we will continue to show our solidarity with the people of Japan on these issues. The summit meeting in Tokyo this time, this is 4th summit after Fukuoka meeting in 2008, and the 3 leaders went to Sendai as well as, I think, tasted cherries produced in the region of Fukushima, which was very nice pictures. And we hope that this, as I said, tripartite leadership meeting will continue. This meeting was more concentrated, focused on the issue of, I think, nuclear plant problems in Fukushima area. And they agreed that we have to really work very hard on agreeing safety measures of the nuclear plants, because Japan, China, Korea all heavily rely on nuclear plants to generate electricity domestically. And also in case of Korea, we even exported for 1,400 megawatt advanced power reactor to Abu Dhabi. So the future of nuclear plants greatly depend on the safety measures that we make progress on. And in this respect, the three leaders meeting in Tokyo was very much, I think, has great implications for the future of nuclear energy as well. But next year, I think it will be in Korea again. And as I said, I hope that three leaders of the country will continue to strengthen their relationship, not only personal relationship, but country relationship, so that this will lead to something more tangible and some policy that can be much more focused. That is why I said that instead of just meeting year by year, they should have more focused attention on certain issues like, say, climate change is really one of the major issues facing the humanity, that if we agreed on certain programs and proposals, that will be much more appreciated by not only people in our region, but by the people over the world. Thank you.
The nuclear incident in Fukushima this time has been a great concern, not only for Japan, but also countries in Asia and the world. Korea is now relying on the nuclear power generation for about almost 40% of the entire energy consumption. And Korea does have 21 nuclear power plants, and also Japan, about 54 power plants, and China, about 13 plants. Altogether, about